Having an exceptional relationship with your spouse affects every single aspect of your life and is crucial for experiencing your dream life together. I'm Rob Murgatroyd.
And I'm Kim Murgatroyd. Listen in on our honest, filter-free conversations as we navigate life and business together without killing each other.
You'll learn by osmosis how to transform the friction you feel in your relationship into a purposeful foundation that will allow you to grow together.
Welcome to the Friday Podcast.
Kimberly Arezzo Murgatroyd, how are you today?
I think we might be going to the small village of Arezzo today after we record, so it's going to be good.
We'll see. We got a special day today, and it's special because Sophia's not back until 7:00 tonight.
It's so we can run with scissors naked backwards with no problems.
When was the last time that you had a day without a child with your husband that went from 8:00 until 7 p.m. at night?
Before I had Sophia.
It's fucking crazy, right?
It's crazy.
It really is. It's crazy. Do you think we'll like each other when Sophia's gone? Because
like in college?
Because that's a long fucking day I got to spend with you today. Like I'm not
Who says I have to spend the whole day with you?
You have other plans?
Yeah, other plans, other boyfriends. We'll see.
You know what we're going to talk about today? And it's not your boyfriend. We're going to talk about a concept. You know, look, here's the thing with this. When you are in the world that Kim and I are in, you know, in the world of content creation, you're always trying to come up with things that you can say in such a way that people will understand, people will relate to. It will help you refine and define your messaging. It'll help you create more content because at the end of the day, you're trying to help people, right? And if you're coming up with, you know, these arbitrary principles that mean something to you, but the audience is like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, it doesn't help. And I spend a lot of my days saying things that people are like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then I spend 25% of my day with people going, that was fucking genius. And it's almost like a comedian where you're constantly working material out so that you can present it in a way that has impact for people and makes them like think about what a comedian does. They're trying, like I remember listening to Jerry Seinfeld. He's talking about like how, like, do you know how hard it is to go inside somebody's body and make them fucking hysterically laugh? Yeah. Like that is magic. That's magic, right? How do you do that? And so, you know, one of the principles that by dumb luck I said on this podcast, this very podcast, we're talking about the idea of enough. When is enough enough? And you've heard it before on previous podcasts. And I was interviewing somebody the other day and that concept came up again. And so when we recognize that we're saying something that makes sense, then it gives us an opportunity. We get
really excited. We're like, we said something that makes sense. Well, but let me say this though, because yes, we're like trying to come up with ways to explain things. But more than that, Rob and I have had such a life, personal, conceptual, motto, theoretical, all of the alls, transformation over the last 2 years. And, you know, between COVID and moving to Europe, between like the situation of COVID and the moving to Europe, we have had such a transformation in all areas of our life that we're trying to, number one, make it clear and make sense to us. Because we feel differently about things. We feel differently about life. We feel differently about how we interact with people. So much has shifted. And so sometimes when you're in it, it's hard to put it into words, but we do our best and try because we have a podcast. We have to put it into words. And so as the idea came out of you live on air, like we didn't talk about before, you didn't write the when is enough sentence, like you had the aha moment as we were discussing it, which I think is the beauty of this podcast, right? We're not super scripted and all of that. You had that aha moment, but it has now taken on a life of its own, and it's continued to evolve, not just for us, but for other people, because we're getting your messages. And by the way, every time you listen to the podcast and you share it in your social media, it helps us so much because number one, it makes us realize we're not talking to ourselves. And number two, it gets the message out, a much needed message in this case, out to people around the world. So every time you screenshot this episode and tag us, you have no idea how much it means to us. And if you haven't left a review, that helps too, because the more we can get this message out, the better it is. And the more we're refining the message, the clearer it will get. And so today we are going to talk about when is enough enough? Rob said enough is enough when it begins to erode your bandwidth for a great life. So we got a question the other day on one of his posts, and it was like, okay, but didn't you work and create all this success so now you can tap out and live your life? And it got us thinking, because that was not the intention, right? And so that got us thinking and talking. And so now, we're going, okay, so enough is enough when it erodes your bandwidth for a great life. So what do? A, you either say, I'm going to maintain my business where it is.
I want to back it up a little bit, because I now have in this spring fall collection of this concept, I now have visuals and,
Well, hold on. Let me just say this real quick before you go into your visual. I want to give the visual. I want to give this thing because people have that question. And so let me finish my concept on this question. So people say, Rob says, when is enough enough and when it begins to erode your bandwidth for a great life? And so this guy says, but didn't you already make the money? So now you can go have the great life, basically, right? And so that wasn't the intention of when is enough enough. So you have two options, right? Option A is you either stop growing your business and or you pause or you maintain and you put the energy into everything else in your life, or you find a way to increase your bandwidth without increasing stress. You organize, you create systems in your business so you can put energy and effort, and you do have the bandwidth to go into the great life, because now cue Rob's visual.
Yeah. So I was trying to find a way that I can explain this a little bit better. And I want you, this is going to be a little bit tricky because it's an audio medium, but let me give it to you anyway. If you're driving, just, think about it in your minds. Don't crash. Imagine a big, giant box. It doesn't have to be giant, but just imagine the box. And put a line down the middle of the box. And on the left side, you have a box that says successful business. And on the right side, you have a box that says great life. Okay, the line down the middle is a line that we're going to call enough is enough, right? It's your bandwidth. So imagine that in an effort to build your successful business, you keep stuffing things into that successful business box, right? I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to open up more offices. I want to hire more attorneys or CPAs or whatever, right? I just want to do more. And so that business box starts getting full, like an envelope would get full if you just kept stuffing stuff in it. Eventually, that business box will start to overflow. So now if you think about that line that's in between the successful business and the great life, that line is starting to bend, right? At some point, if you keep stuffing the successful business box, that bendable line, the bandwidth, will eventually bleed over into the great life. Okay. So what's your choice? Is your choice to look at it and go, well, I want this successful business. I have all these ideas of what I want to do, but I do see that it's starting to erode what I've set for a great life. So what am I supposed to do? To use Kim's example, do I just stop growing my business because it's using up all my bandwidth? Or do I find a way to increase my bandwidth so that I've got more room for a great life? So the way I look at it is, if that line for your business is bending like a bow in an arrow, and it just keeps bending and bending and bending, it's going to pop. And that that bow is going to you can only pull a bow and arrow back so far before it will eventually snap, right? So we want to figure out a way to make it not snap. Well, how do we do that? You got to get more efficient. You either stop pulling it or you find a way to get more efficient. Well, how do you do that? Well, most of the people that I coach, I find that they are very inefficient in certain areas of their business because they have blind spots. Maybe they're good at big picture. Maybe they're not good at creating they're good at the macro, but they're not good at the micro, right? Or they're good at the micro, but they're not good at the macro, which means, either they've got this, big picture idea. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do all these things, but their business is inefficient and there's holes in the bucket all over the place because they're not addressing systems and checklists and automation and things like that. And then there's the reverse, where people are bogged down, where they've got all these granular systems with checklists, but they've got no business. And so they're spending all this time in their business, but they're not really making much money. So they're spending more and more time. So they're either, they're inefficient on both ends of the spectrum. Okay.
So I want to take this back because we've talked a lot about Gay Hendricks' book, The Big Leap. We've talked a lot about The Big Leap. And in The Big Leap, he talks about the zone of incompetence, which is shit you don't know how to do. Like if I say, hey, Rob, I bought a new bookshelf. Could you put it together? We will be here until, there's, I don't know, I guess I was about to say spaceships in the sky, but I guess that's not so far off anymore. We will have a full colony on Mars before Rob can put a bookshelf together. Okay. This is a zone of incompetence. But to your point, when you're a one-man show or you're an entrepreneur that's growing and you're wearing all the hats, sometimes you're trying to put the bookshelf together when you have no fucking idea how to put the bookshelf together, and you're wasting so much time trying to do a task that you are not competent at, and it's distracting you from other things. And so, or even worse, you're super competent at something, but it's not your zone of excellence or your zone of genius. So you shouldn't be spending your time there, either. So I think that in just using that framework, right? So I know with your coaching clients, like you have this one coaching client that I remember when you started with her, she had one physical location. And over the, 2 years or so that you've been working with her, she now is opening like her 4th physical location. She's scaling, she's growing. But more than that, like initially it was like taking every bit of bandwidth she had and only focusing on her business, and other areas of life were suffering. And she only had this one location. Now she's scaling and growing and expanding into multiple, but all the areas of her life are so fulfilled because you're taking the time to say, okay, you're competent at that, but we can outsource that. That you have no idea what you're doing there. We need to find an expert. That is your zone. Let's keep you there. I remember you did this in our clinic when we had a clinic together. I remember like we would have like new project or a new thing, and you would just come in and organize and create systems for everything. And I'm just a lonely little Aquarius over here floating around the universe, needing a Virgo to organize some shit. And that's where you're so strong in this. But I think that's what makes this idea of, that's what like the light bulb went on for me, because enough is enough when it begins to erode the bandwidth. But what if you can organize your life and create more bandwidth without the stress? Because yes, you can burn the candle at both ends and grind in both areas and then fall into the bed at night feeling like depleted. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about really systematizing, is that a word? Your business and creating these systems so it operates more efficiently, so you have less stress, more bandwidth to be able to grow your business and grow in your life too, and put intentional effort and energy into all the areas of life.
Yeah, I want to stay on the coaching example that you used a second ago, because I think it's really, really useful here. So hopefully you still have that visual in your mind of the business on the left, successful business on the left, and great life on
in the
right.
box with the line down the middle.
In the box with the line down the middle. So the last coaching call, and she's given me permission to share this. The last coaching call we did, because she's opening up multiple, this is, her particular business. She's opening up multiple locations. She is, as you can imagine, she is getting her inbounds to her emails, direct messages, texts, phone. Like it's unbelievable. The things that she needs to do. I got to meet with this contractor. I got to meet with that contractor. And I could see it. I saw it in her face when we were doing Zoom, and she was in fucking overwhelm. And she's like, Rob, I just don't know how I'm going to do this. She wants to do it, but it's all. So I said to her, okay, look, here's what we're going to do. I want you to get everything out of your head. Just keep talking and tell me everything. I'm going to type, and I want you to tell me everything. I don't care what's on your mind. I don't care if it's, and I want to go on a date with my significant other, or it's I need to do my dry cleaning, or it's I need to return the call from the contractor, or it's I need to hire somebody, whatever it is. Okay, just go. I'm telling you, I think she went for a half hour, and I took the equivalent of probably 2 pages of a mix of action items, projects, results, reasons, all together. Like they were just mismatched all together. Some of them were personal, some of them were business. And so once we got all out of her head, like I can see, like it was like watching somebody who was channeling another spirit, where once the spirit left the body, they came back to earth and went, okay, I'm back. Like she literally was lost in her minds. And I was like, are you sure you're done? And she's like, hold on. Yes, I got it all out. I said, okay. All right. So now how do you feel? She goes, lighter, but I don't know anything I just said. I said, it's okay. I got it on paper. So now we're going to take it and we're going to chunk them. We're going to separate it into 2 piles. We're going to make a personal pile and we're going to make a business pile. It's like, okay. And then we're going to look at all of the business things and we're going to chunk that into what, remember that game that you played when you were a kid? Which of these goes, which of these things belong together? Did you ever play that thing? Mm-hmm. And so we were like, okay, well, what goes with what? These are all hiring things. These are all staff things. These are all, and so we started to chunk them. And then when we chunked it, we said, okay, what results do you want from this chunk? And then she looked at it and she gave me the result. And we did that for all of her business and all of her personal. Once we had all of those where we were super clear on what the results were that she was after, what all the action items that were associated with that, then we looked through and we said, okay, you have people in your office now because we've set this up. You have some staff, you have some assistants, you have managers, you have help at the house. And she didn't have any of this when we started. But as she was able to afford it and as she was able to grow, she put these layers that were in place. I said, okay, give me the initials. I'm going to review each one of these texts. Give me the initials of the person who could do this 80% as well as you can. Not 100, not 60, but 80%. Like pretty damn good, but not perfect. So she did. By the time we were done, the 2-page list of things that she had to do was down to probably the equivalent of a paragraph that she had to do. And we realized that she could execute on that paragraph that afternoon and be completely done with everything that
and outsource the rest.
And outsource everything because she took the time to clarify. This is the thing most businesses don't do. She took the time to clarify everything that she had in her head and figured out, okay, so I took the long way around. So that's an example of the kind of thing I would do with somebody. Well, what did that do? What that did was that massively increased her bandwidth of what she was capable to do for the other side of that box, which is a great life. So I said, okay, so now let's flip it. Now we realize that you only have a paragraph of to-dos left, the equivalent of, and it happened to be a Friday afternoon. I was like, what do you want to do now? And she went, I'm taking the weekend off. And I went, why? She said, because I realized it's not that much. I was convinced that I was going to spend this entire weekend working, and I was pissed about it. because I want to have a great life. I want to be with my man this weekend. And I feel like I now can have time to do it. So I said, okay, so text me Sunday and let me know how it went. And let me know if this is all just bullshit or, like it's smoke and mirrors, or it really did make a difference. And she texted me on Sunday and she said, every time I thought, oh my God, I have all these things to do, I looked down at that list and I went, no, you don't. You're telling yourself a story. This is what you have to do. And you did half of it and you can do the rest of it on Monday. So they wound up taking the weekend. I think they went to like the Four Seasons at like some fancy place and did like a spa weekend.
Which is much needed, by the way.
Which was much needed, right? So the point is that while this whole concept of enough is enough is really saying, like, if it's eroding the bandwidth for a great life, it's not working for me. So I either need to stop or I need to do something similar to what I just explained, where you figure out why. And that's why I think, I don't want to go on and on about coaching, but the reason why I think this is valuable is because it's really, like, for example, this concept that you and I are talking about, we talked about it in the car on the way taking Gia to the vet this morning. You played the role of my coach. You were able to, I was like, I got this thing, it's on my mind and I don't really understand how to explain it. And you helped me through it. So as a result of doing that, as a result of getting coaching from you, I was able to clarify what it was that I'm trying to say. And as a result of being able to clarify it, we were able to do this podcast to help other people.
Well, when you're in overwhelm, you can't see the forest of the trees, right? And so you need another person to do that. And I think, so the messaging here on when is enough, and when it begins to erode your bandwidth, like I also pointed out to you, I said, this is not a concept that we just like thought of one day. This is our life. Like when we lived in California, when I said to Rob, I liked you better in Italy, it was because he was so overscheduled. He was so back to back. He was so, that box, when in his example, in this visual, the business success box was exploding into the personal. That line in the middle was so far over, it was it was about to snap. And it was so one-sided. And that's why I was like, you know what, I liked you better in Italy, because in Italy, we had more lifestyle. We had more time together. We had he was just different. And so moving here allowed that bandwidth to go back and be more flexible. And so now his schedule, like yesterday, I sprung on him. I was like, by the way, this afternoon at 1:30, we got to drive to Sophia's school for a parent-teacher student conference. That would have sent him into a tizzy like you've never seen if he was still the way he was in California. But he's not. He was like, okay, well, I had other things on my schedule, but no problem. And we went and we had a great day, and he still probably got most of his things done. And so there was no stress around that. So it's creating that bandwidth flexibility where if someone wants to have a coffee with him or we need to throw something in, he doesn't go into this like downward spiral of crazy overwhelm like he would have before. And so this concept is something that is so life-changing. And I know a lot of you, when you heard the podcast on when is enough, agreed, because we've gotten your messages, but this is the next level of it. It's like, okay, great. So when is enough? All right. When it erodes my bandwidth. Okay. How do I know it's eroding my bandwidth? Well, that's why we created the redefine your success in all areas of life. That's why Rob created that worksheet for you, because you need to define the success. Like, what does success mean to you in all of these areas of life? And that's your barometer of knowing, like, this is my standard. And when my business begins to erode this standard, then something's got to give. I either need to pause on the business, or I need to find a way to get more efficient, to create systems and organization that allow me to both grow business, success-wise in business, and put the energy and effort into the personal areas so I can meet my benchmarks. So this all plays together. So this enough concept, this defining success, all of this all plays together into creating a life that's not only successful, but also fulfilling, because the extremes of that, like the extremes on both sides, are not great.
No, they're not. And, you mentioned earlier when we were talking about this that, there's a line between, a successful business and a life. This line between the successful business and a life needs to be bendable and flexible, because we're going to be, in different seasons of our life that is going to force it to be bent. For example, a few years ago, my dad had cancer, and I did not have this bandwidth flexibility in my practice. My wife was a little bit more flexible in that she was working in the office and we had somebody else in the office. So it wasn't perfect, but she was able to get on a plane. We were living in Atlanta at the time, and she was able to get on a plane and fly to be with my mom right before, my dad, he probably had 2 more weeks to live. But she was able to spend those 2 weeks taking care of and living with my mother while my dad was sick. But I didn't have the bandwidth flexibility to do that. I had to keep the operation going in the office. And, when you set yourself up with that bandwidth flexibility, what you're really doing is allowing things to go from one to the other. So let me give you some examples. I'm going to give you an example of an extreme bandwidth. I'm going to give you an example of no bandwidth. And then I'm going to give you an example of the sweet spot between the two of them and why I think the recommendation is to have that sweet spot. So let's talk about the first one. The first one is, let's just say that you have a business that has full automation, right? And by full automation, I'll use an example that you own buildings that throw off, a ton of income every month. The buildings are all paid. You have no mortgage. You have a management team that's in place that's operating at 100%. And, you get $100,000 a month. I'm making this up. You get $100,000 every month and you can't spend it, right? That gives you complete flexibility because you have a successful business and you have a ton of time to have a great life, right?
So that line between the two boxes, just to use your example,
stays solid.
Well, it's actually, the line moves, and it's your life is now expanding into the business side, right?
Right. So maybe that line is not split down the middle of the box. It's 10% into the business and 90% into personal.
This is like everybody's dream, right? But it's be careful what you wish for. It's everybody's dream. If I just won the lottery, I'd sit on the beach and do nothing, or I would go right off into the sunset and just enjoy my life. Well, what happens with that, right? In that example, we have friends that have cashed out and done all of that, and they are bored. they don't feel challenged.
Like legit bored.
Bored.
Almost legit bored, like almost worse than the other extreme of being overwhelmed.
It's kind of like, when someone works all their life and they retire and then they die the following week, like they waited for retirement, but then but there was no purpose behind it anymore. I think it's not the work, it's the purpose and
the contribution.
It's the contribution. It's all of the other things, right? And so if you go to one extreme where you have all the money in the world and all you have to do is live your life, although that sounds amazing, you still are going to create or crave that contribution and that growth in some way. And so you end up on that side of the spectrum, really bored, not being challenged in any way. And, it's kind of be careful what you wish for. But then if you swing the pendulum the other way, what do you get?
Well, let's just say I'll use an example that a lot of my coaching clients are in. They are entrepreneurs, some of them are professionals, think chiropractors, dentists, lawyers, CPAs, or just think somebody that, owns some sort of plumbing business or something like that, where they are in the primary position of opening the business. It's running well, everything comes to them, and they're in this, sort of phase where things are good and they want to push it. They want to open up a few more. and they're like, I can open up another plumbing company, another plumbing location, or I can open up, I can hire more lawyers, or you get the idea. There's some kind of growth or expansion you want to do. All right, let's go back to our box, right? You got successful business, line down the middle, bisecting it 50-50 with a great life. And now you've got all this stuff coming at you. You got to meet with the contractor to open up the second location. You got to hire the attorneys for potential consideration to be new associates. And your bandwidth starts becoming eroded. Your business box starts getting more and more filled. All right, so now you're trying to figure out, what are you going to do? Well, if you don't address it and you decide that you want to open up, I have people that want to open up 10 locations, you're going to have a fucking heart attack, right? Your wife is going to leave you. Your kids don't know you because all of your time and energy is going into that business. And you can say, well, it's okay to be off balance. And maybe it is. But that's not typically where a lot of people live. They live there longer than they want to live there. And some things you can't undo, right? It just gets too much. So you're really paying the price. So that person has to do what we talked about. They have to figure out ways that they could get what they want, make it more efficient, make it more effective so that they can deal with it. Okay, so that person does not have a tremendous amount of bandwidth, so they need to figure out how to be more efficient and grow simultaneously, right?
Or they're going to break and have a heart attack.
So
you have two extremes. On one extreme, you have the full automation, living the life, has nothing really to do, but is bored AF and isn't being challenged. And on the other side, you have someone who's wearing all of the hats, all of the time, is overwhelmed, stressed, and doesn't put any energy into their life. So the goal, and the reason why we have this conversation around enough is enough, is that the goal is to find that sweet spot, the sweet spot between the two, right? Where you have growth and you're challenged and you're building something you're proud of, but also that you're keeping tabs on all the other, your health, your relationships, your family, your friends, your hobbies, and you're putting energy into effort into those as well. So it's that sweet spot that, often what people do is they say, I'm going to do one until I can do the other, right? So they're going to grind it out on one extreme. And when they get the payday, they're going to just sit on the beach and sit in the sunshine. So they go from the heart attack on one side to being completely bored on the other side. So what do? They start it over. And that becomes the loop. And they go right back into building a business and doing the whole thing. And so then they hit the threshold of heart attack and they tap out and they go back into nothing and boredom. And instead of going 0 or 100, what about going at 50?
Well, yeah. And, people talk about balance, but are you ever really in balance? I just think that that's a flawed premise to think about. I like the idea of thinking about when your bandwidth gets eroded by your business for a great life. So if you're I think the litmus test for a business person, and a lot of people are business people who listen to this podcast, I think you have to ask yourself, what does a great life look like for me? What does it look like with my wife? What does it look like with my kids? What does it look like with my body? What does it look like with travel? What does it look like with hobbies and fun and time off? That's what the great life is, right? Well, is your business eroding that picture, that image that I just gave you? If it is, then enough is enough. It's too much. And you have to figure out for you, how do I find my place in between the two of them? I think the idea of whether or not you're in balance is just the wrong idea. It's kind of like when, you hear people talk about nutrition and they're like, so should I get natural peanut butter if I'm trying to lose weight? I think it's the wrong question. Do you know
Right.
what I mean? It's the wrong question.
No, it's more like how much peanut butter are you eating?
Right. So I think the idea of, well, you're never going to be in balance, but that is a concept that's not accurate. It's truly not accurate to what we're describing.
It's not about balance. It's about flexibility. Because if you're not flexible and you're rigid, it creates stress because shit will break if it's rigid. But if you're flexible, Then when you need to go a little bit more in business for a week, and then you can swing back flexible the other way. There's flexibility in it versus being so rigid and like, I need to be in balance. That doesn't exist. So I hope this concept is a good concept and as we create more clarity on it ourselves, we will continue to share it with you because I think it's something that has really impacted our life over the last couple of years, and we just want to pay it forward.
And if you want to know more about how I coach and you want to do a free discovery call with me, just go on my Instagram and text me or DM me the word coach, COACH.
Etch?
And I snorted. Let's try that one more time.
Please keep that in, podcast team.
If you want to know more about my coaching, go on Instagram and DM me only the word coach. COAC. Aka. Ciao. Hey, everybody, if you've ever thought about coming to hang out with Kim and I on one of our next Rob and Kim Italia events and you want to learn more, just click the Rob and Kim Italia link in the show notes and add your name and email, and we'll send you all the details as soon as they're available. We are obsessed with this country and how it affects you, and we want to share that magic of culture, food, wine, art, architecture, and some secret magic moments that we've cooked up with you. So be sure to add your name because these events sell out quickly.